Bank on It, brought to you by Commercial Bank. What did the Vols show in reaching the SEC tournament? Well, I think they showed toughness, and you can bank on that. Brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC, life made better. What do you think they showed?
I think Tennessee showed multiple things in the SEC tournament, positive and negative, and it really depends on their matchups over which one will work out. So as far as what they showed positive, and it was really against Texas and Auburn. They scored 83 points against Texas. They scored 70 against Auburn, which that's actually a lot against a team as good as Auburn and what they do. And Dave, they did it while shooting below 26% from three in both games. And I think you and I have talked all year how it's concerning whether or not this team can manufacture buckets when they're not shooting from three, right? But they did it twice. Now, Texas, I take with a grain of salt. I'll be honest. I think Texas was so exhausted that all they were doing was fouling when Tennessee got in the paint because of what would happen from the night before. But Auburn wasn't that exhausted, and Tennessee was doing the same thing to them. So they found a way to manufacture buckets, particularly the guards. That's a big deal. But then against Florida, you couldn't blame the shooting disparity like you could the first time they lost to Florida. They lost to Florida because that's a bad matchup. And here's the problem with Tennessee. They have a problem if they run into a big team that is athletic. That size and athleticism is just too much because, Dave, I don't know if you've noticed in the game yesterday, Tennessee couldn't get anything in transition. They would get a rebound, they would push it, and Florida would get back on defense right there with them, with the guards. And Florida has the size advantage, so that really messed up Tennessee. So their only hope to beat Florida was to either shoot red hot from three or Florida shoot incredibly poorly from three. Neither of those things happened, add in the foul trouble, and it got even worse. So I think, bank on it, Tennessee now has ways to score without shooting red hot from three. But it can't be against big athletic teams.
Okay, bank on it. Okay, bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC. Again, I think they showed toughness, but Caleb said it doesn't even matter what you do in the SEC tournament.
Commercial Bank is your neighborhood bank. What makes us different from other banks? We understand that every customer has unique opportunities, challenges, and financial concerns. We don't expect you to fit into the same box as the next person or business. Whether it's purchasing a home, saving for your child's future, or planning for your next vacation, we're with you every step of the way to navigate life's big decisions. Commercial Bank. Life.
They showed me that they're the team that you should gamble on in the first round of the NCAA tournament. And perhaps you could look at the spread there. And depending on who they play in this, I think you should gamble on them in the second round. Why? Because they're tenacious, they're tough. You can tell that they've got a limited time to play together. And I think that was really apparent in Rick Barnes's post-game interview, in which he was very emotional, soft-spoken. I think it was apparent when Zakai Ziegler in the first half against Florida dove for a steal, got a steal, and then drew a foul. It was an amazing play. And then with two blocks on one possession, Caleb, I think they showed that they're a tenacious team that is going to battle, whether it's on the blacktop or whether it's in the NCAA tournament. If you sat back and watched that team and you're a gambler, which I'm not, you are, that's a team I'm putting money on with the points because I don't believe that they're going to show up flat. I always thought that at some point the Jerry Green teams would show up flat, and they usually did. But I don't think there's any chance this team shows up flat.
So, to your point, Tennessee is an 18.5-point favorite over Wofford this weekend. They are, to win the national title, they have the sixth best odds. I'm looking at it on FanDuel right now at plus 2,200 to win the national title.
I'm not saying they'll win the national title, but I would take them. That's a lot of points. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit. They'll win by 10 or 12. They might not cover, but they are not going to show up flat. Would you agree with that? There's no Jerry.
No, yes, they're not going to show up flat. Right. They're not going to play Louisiana Lafayette and win by 5 in the first round.
Or Delaware and win by 3 in the 40s.
Yes, that's true. And then play Southwest Missouri State and give up 81. Or was it Southwest Missouri State? Was that who it was?
Southwest Missouri State, they got beat by 32 points, if I remember correctly.
I mean, I just remember you remember the fact that it was a directional Missouri State team, not just a Missouri State team.
I remember it too because I was at a radio cluster and I was working for the now defunct Sports Radio 1240. And there was somebody who was on like the local hot AC radio station that actually went to Southwest Missouri State. So he crowed about it the entire week after the win.
Wouldn't you? I mean,
has Southwest Missouri State had a bigger athletic achievement in the history of the school? I would say probably not.
Well, now I think they're just Missouri State. So
are they? I thought that was a different school.
No, they used to be Southwest Missouri State. Now they're Missouri State. Pulling up athletics, though, I mean, I could. Look, you know what's funny is Conzo Martin came from Missouri State. Interestingly enough,
I didn't.
But yes,
I thought they were two different schools.
No, they no, they were one school. They yeah, it's
why did they drop to Southwest? Did they move?
I don't think.
Should they be middle of the state, Missouri State now?
Should they be middle of the state, Missouri State?
Where did they move to? How about slightly Southwest Missouri State?
Well, I mean, like, okay, so I'm now pulling this up. I'm trying to, like, I'm actually looking up their most, like, their biggest accomplishments. And, oh, that's the women's basketball results. That's why I was confused for a minute. I was like, wait, what?
There you go.
Oh, yeah, I was like, wait a minute. What? The women's, this is, why are they not showing me the men? They don't even have the men's NCAA tournament accomplishments on here. Like,
looking up Southwest Missouri State's greatest accomplishments in athletics, that on Off the Hook Sports with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Do you have that yet?
Yes, and yes, their most successful run ever was to the Sweet 16, and that remains the last time they ever made the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, it's like you talk about this being the greatest draw ever. Tennessee had the greatest draw ever that year in Delaware and Southwest Missouri State. I mean, it was a lock that they were going to be in the Sweet 16, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
and to not even show up and get beat by 30, they were out of that game for the entire game.
I mean,
can you look up the halftime score of that game?
Let's see.
I'm curious of the halftime score. It's brought to you by the entire show is brought to you by our good friends, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com, from the Ted Russell Ford Lincoln Studios. But they were up by 10. They were only down by 10 at halftime, and then Southwest Missouri down by 10 to Southwest Missouri State. That's pretty bad. Bank on it. Brought to you by
Dave. If you don't like that, you could just go to Kmart.
That's right, and rent a movie. Bank on it. Brought to you by Commercial Bank, member FDIC. You've got to check out Commercial Bank. I absolutely love them. That's where I bank. I'm proud to do so. And it's cbtn.com, cbtn.com. In 2 minutes, Bruce Pearl kind of makes a jackwagon of himself. Caleb called him out, and I don't blame him. With Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports. Before we move on, though, I do want to ask you one other thing about what Tennessee did in the SEC tournament finals, in particular, the run they made in the second half to make it a game. They didn't have to do that. They know, they're smart kids. They know as well as you and I do that it really doesn't mean that much. They could have shut it down. They didn't. Again, I thought that showed an awful lot of character.
I'll give you this. Like, if you want to talk competitive fire, this seems like a team, like, particularly with Zakai Ziegler leading it, genetically inclined to not be able to not try to win when they're on the court. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? And you know people that have had that mentality before, where even from a rational perspective, just to they seem like they can't bring themselves to not win. It kind of reminds me of, the Michael Jordan's second year when he had the bad foot injury where he missed like 40 games or whatever.
Wait, second year returning?
No, second year overall with the Bulls in like 85, 86 when he had the foot injury.
Okay. I thought it was a knee, but anyway, go ahead.
May have been the knee injury. Yeah, but basically he missed a ton of time. And the Bulls had we kind of were just going to keep him rested because we want to get a lottery pick. You know what I mean? And Michael Jordan was so determined to try to get that team to the playoffs that he basically used his leverage to demand the Bulls put him back in late, despite the fact that it could further injure him and it could put the Bulls in the playoff, which they wouldn't want because they want the lottery pick. Well, he did get him to the playoffs, and that's the year he scored 63 points against Boston, and Larry Bird called him God in a Michael Jordan uniform. And it's it hurt their lottery picks, but it does speak to the Michael Jordan mentality of this is why he got 6 rings in 8 years at the same time.